Okay, so you got the disclosure package and you're saying, oh my goodness, there are so many forms, where do I start, right? If this thing looks like a 200 to 300 page document. All right, the first thing I want to say is, yes, it is your responsibility to read every single page of that disclosure, because in order for you to close a deal on this house, you're going to be initialing on every single page. My assistant will be sending you the disclosures for signatures. So yes, it is your responsibility. So let me draw your attention to the most important ones that you're going to want to start with. The first is what we call the preliminary title report. This is the official record of who actually owns this property. So one of the first things we do is we want to make sure that the person signing the documents for the seller is actually the person that's listed in the prelim report, okay? The prelim report will also show you actually the boundaries of the property usually, and it will also tell you what encumbrances, meaning who does the seller need to pay off before they can actually legally sell the house to you. Sometimes some sellers have, they've got bankruptcies and issues on the prelim report, so that'll give us an idea as to whether or not, that the seller is actually going to be able to sell, okay? So that's the prelim. Now, once we've certified that the seller really is the owner of the property, then let's actually go into the disclosures, all right? There are really three main ones at first. There's the real estate transfer disclosure statement, the TDS. The second one to look at is the seller property questionnaire, SPQ. The third one is the listing agent, AVID, agent visual inspection disclosure. Now, let's talk about each of these. The TDS, the real estate transfer disclosure statement, this is a form that is required by California Civil Code, and it requires the seller to disclose anything they know about the property to anyone who's going to buy this house. However, the California Association of Realtors determined and found out that actually California state law didn't go far enough in requiring what the seller was supposed to disclose. Therefore, there's a second form called the seller property questionnaire that goes even deeper. For instance, on the SPQ, we ask the seller, has there been a death on the property in the past 3 years? That doesn't show up on the TDS, okay, and that's why there's an SPQ. So those two are filled out by the seller. The third one to look at is the listing agent visual inspection disclosure. So what that is, it's a form that the listing agent takes and they walk through the house and they make just kind of visual notes on it. And so that will tell you additional information about what's going on in the house as well, okay? Now, after those three, then I personally like to go to the pest report if there is one. Now, what the pest is, it talks about any water damage, dry rot, fungus, termites. It'll catch rodents too, of course, but pest really means organic, meaning mold, mushroom, dry rot, okay? If you go down to the bottom of the pest report, typically there's two sections. There's a section 1 and a section 2. A section 1 is what the pest inspector says that you should really spend money to repair these things, and they'll actually give you a dollar amount, okay? In wet areas like Daly City, it's common to see pest reports that say, section 1 is, $9,000 to $20,000. Very common. Section 2 are recommended repairs, but not repairs that need to happen right away. So that's why I like going to the pest report, because it actually gives you a dollar amount of what you might need to spend to make this property, to bring this property up to what they call, pest free. On the pest report, keep in mind that pest inspectors will usually overestimate what it's going to cost to rectify the issues, because they don't want to lowball the estimate. You come in, you make the repairs, and you find out it's more than what they estimated, and you complain, and they just don't want that headache. Okay, so just keep that in mind. The next thing I like to go to after the pest report is a home inspection report. Now, this is a deep dive on all the physical aspects of what's going on with the property. They'll talk about the roof, the electrical, the plumbing, the foundation, and the windows and the doors, the 5 operating systems that I recently talked about. They also talk about other things like landscaping as well. So I like going in there and figuring out, how old all the stuff is, and it provides a lot more information about what's going on with the property. Sometimes there's also a separate roof inspection, because some inspectors don't do roof. You have to get a separate roof inspector. I like looking at the roof inspection report too, because it'll tell me how old the roof is. And if the roof only has 5 years left, and you know the roof is going to cost, let's say, $20,000 to replace, then that's something, a calculation, that you might want to start figuring, okay? Last but not least are all the other advisories. There are a lot there. For instance, the natural hazards disclosure, which tells you whether or not you're in an earthquake zone or a flood zone or an endangered species zone. There are also advisories about, possible multiple representation, market advisories, and so on and so forth. If you have questions about any of those other forms, feel free to reach out. We can talk about those in more detail. Okay, so that, in a nutshell, is how to review the disclosures for a property.